This is the second video on recycling plastic samples, how to use your plastics and your samples and your textiles to raise awareness of environmental issues through your work. The first thing you need to do, as in video one, you need to get yourself lots and lots of plastic bags, lots of different types of things. You could also get things like string, twine, any packaging. You might have these little straws, netting works well from fruit and vegetables, or any little scraps of fabric that you'd like to trap inside. You need to make sure that you've got your research to hand. Mood board can be really helpful for this, or some large images that you can copy the colours, the textures, the patterns and the imagery shape as well, the form from those, and have those to hand so that you can see what you're doing. You obviously need your greaseproof paper, and you need to remember the iron is hot. I'm going to use a background piece to bond onto, and I'm going to use this photo, this research picture, in quite a loose way, in the way that I want to capture some of the colours and textures that I can then stitch into later. So I'm going to lay down some cut-out, quite rough looking kind of shapes that recreate the flow of the water. I'm going to add some wool in, again to add a bit more texture, a bit more interest, and I'm just kind of going to lay it over so it looks like the water's running through the reeds that I've got implied in here. You can add as much as you want to on these. You can obviously develop these as well, so you can cut them up, which I'll show you in a moment, and reposition them and stitch them back down, etc. And I've got some green embroidery thread at home, just what I have in my cupboard, so I'm going to use some of that to layer up on top for that. I'm going to use some green, slightly thinner plastic, so put it nearer the top, again in quite a haphazard way, to kind of just cut into and recreate some of the shapes that I could see on my research picture of things, flow of the water flow and the reeds all getting tangled up together. Okay. Put your greaseproof over the top, okay, and then just literally just iron it down, and the plastic over the top will trap the wool, etc. Into the thing. You don't need very long, just take your iron up and just have a check, see how it's doing. Okay. Peel it off. And you've got quite a nice background all stuck down that you can then work into. This one I've done in a similar technique, but I've then cut it up, so you can then put it on another background and actually start to build up your colours and your textures. So you can cut it up and re-stitch it down. You could weave fabric, the plastics. You could weave different colours to recreate a texture and then press those. You could even knit to it, so you could cut strips of your plastic bags, tie them all together like and make a big ball of plastic wool sort of thing, and then you can actually knit or crochet with that and then press that or not press it depending on what effect you want to look for. You could experiment with different plastics and thicknesses and how different plastics work over the top of different ones. Obviously you've got the collage techniques where you cut them up and put them back down and then re-stitch. You can stitch just over the basic, so if you've got one that you've made, you can just stitch over that if you wanted to add definition, or you could off-centre stitch to create a more interesting pattern. Lots and lots of examples that you can do. It's a nice texture one, similar to one I've made today, that you could then stitch detail onto with different colour threads. What else could you could make the 3D, so you can actually use the stapler to staple into position and recreate things like waves, some of the shapes of. Or of course, if you've got your background, you could then cut out shapes or cut out sections and put plastics behind or leave them see-through, which could create the idea of the space in the waves where the foam goes. And also of course trapping things like wools, plastics, netting, anything really that you've got at home that you could use. So the kind of idea is, once you've done your background, is to then push your ideas, develop them a bit further through cutting it out, collage it again, etc., to make your ideas really individual based on your research pictures.